Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to full council today, Tuesday, the 12th of September. I would like to say that this meeting is being live streamed, and I would like to also welcome our visitors who may be listening on Islands FM. I would also like to mention that I've had two apologies. One from Councillor Robert Dorian Smith, who unfortunately has family medical issues to attend to, and also our Councillor Andy Fraser, who has been unwell recently, and we wish him every best wish for his speedy recovery. Thank you. Item 1 on our agenda is declarations of interest. Do I have any, please? I don't see any. Thank you. Item 2 are our minutes from our previous meeting. Are there any issues around those minutes, please? No? Then could I have a proposer and a seconder for their adoption? Councillor Marcus, Councillor Mumford. All those in favour, please. Thank you. That's passed. Item 3 on our agenda is chairman's and announcements, and I would just like to mention a little bit about our Sea-Links Levelling Up project. Last Friday, Councillor Sims and I met with the Minister for Aviation, Maritime and Security, Baroness Veer, to discuss the Sea-Links project. I was able to update the Minister on the further work which had been undertaken on the project since we last met at the beginning of July. Following the Minister's advice, the Council had worked closely with officials from the Department of Transport and the Steamship Group to see if a way could be found to deliver the new vessels being proposed by the group using the Levelling Up funding, which continues to be available. This work has now been brought together into a full business case, which members are due to consider today for Council. The business case clearly demonstrates the need to intervene and the benefits to residents and businesses of delivering this project using the Levelling Up funding. It was a very positive and helpful meeting. The Minister confirmed that if the business case is approved by the Council, the Department will seek to review it as quickly as possible in order to avoid any unnecessary delays in taking the project forward. Our Council will be making more information available to you over the coming days. Thank you. Item 4 on our agenda are questions under Standing Order 14. I have none. Item 5, draft minutes from committees for information around the IFCA and licensing. Item 6 on our agenda are to consider motions in accordance with Standing Order 12. I have none. And number 7 on our agenda are urgent items, which I have none. We now move into part 1. Our first item is item 8 on the agenda, which is the Isles of Sea-Links project. And I'd like to welcome Nigel Blackler, our lead on the project, please, to introduce it. Thank you, Nigel.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, everyone. The report that you have before you today of part 1, if I just take you through the key points within that report, and then happy to take questions, Chair. Members received a full update on the project at full council on the 22nd of June and made a number of decisions relating to the project at that meeting. Following that meeting, as the Chairman has just referred to, a further meeting took place with the Minister for Aviation, Maritime and Security, Baroness Veer, on the 3rd of July, at which the Chairman presented the Council's position to the Minister. The Minister understood the Council's desire to want to take the project forward at pace, and indeed the frustrations from the Council that more progress had not been made over the preceding 12 months. However, the Minister wanted and encouraged the council to go away and see if there was still a way to deliver the project using the Levelling Up funding that was still available with the steamship group as the incumbent operator, and that she encouraged the council to go away and work with the steamship group and the Department for Transport to see if a way could be found to achieve that. On the 21st of July, representatives from the Council of the Isles of Scilly, the Department for Transport and the steamship group met in London to review the respective positions on the project. And when I say respective positions, that's the position of the steamship group in terms of their private finance initiative, which was announced back in April, and the progress and the timescales associated with that. And in terms of levelling up, the processes that we would need to follow to draw down the funding and put the project in a position where the steamship group's vessels could be delivered using public funding. It was agreed on the 21st of July that all parties would go away and work jointly to bring forward the levelling up funding proposals, a model to deliver that, and to bring those proposals up alongside the timescale that the steamship group had for delivering the vessels using private finance. It's important to note that the steamship group's proposals were based on placing orders for vessels later this month, which would enable the vessels to come into service by March 2026, and that's their publicly stated position. So the challenge was to undertake the further work required on the public sector side to develop the model that would be used to deliver those vessels using the levelling up funding, with the steamship group taking the lead, and in delivering those vessels into service, but with the opportunity to use the levelling up funding which is available to us. The team have worked at pace to bring that work forward, together with the support of colleagues at the Department for Transport who have prioritised this work over the summer period, and with input from Steamship Group in terms of further information. All that work has come together into a full business case, which was submitted to the Department for Transport on the 3rd of September, under cover of letter explaining that the full business case was still subject to approval by full council. And that business case will be considered on this agenda today as a Part 3 item. And the reason for moving it into Part 3 is that it contains information which is commercially confidential, and that information underpins all 5 cases that make up the business case. And therefore, in reviewing the document with the monitoring officer, we concluded that to actually produce a redacted version of the full business case that could be considered by full council in public, it was not practical to do so, as it wouldn't have led to a meaningful document that people could review. So the decision was taken that the full business case will not be placed in public session today, but will be put into Part 3. So that takes me to the 2 recommendations that you have before you in the council report. And the first is to note the further progress on the project and the further developments which have taken place since you met on the 22nd of June. Importantly, the meeting that the council had with the Minister for Aviation, Maritime and Security at the Department for Transport on the 3rd of July, and that members approve that the further report on the full business case and the full business case itself be considered in Part 3 of this meeting. Chair, I hope that's helpful, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Nigel. Do we have any questions, please? Councillor Bedford.
Thank you, Nigel. It's a query, really. Why was the full business case gone to the government before it's gone to full council? I know it's subject to council approval, but it does seem a bit of a weird thing to do.
Chair, if I may respond to that question.
Yes, of course.
Thank you, Councillor Bedford. The reason it was submitted to the Department for Transport in advance of it coming to full council is the process that the Department for Transport needs to go through in assessing a business case. The business case, as you will have seen in the documents for Part 3, is quite a substantial document. It's made up of 5 individual cases. When the Department for Transport receives a business case, those cases are sent to different parts of the Department for Transport who specialise in those respective areas. They're known as the Department for Transport's Centres of Excellence. They are then reviewed by the team in that area who come to a view on the information that's been presented to them. The outcome of those 5 reviews is then brought together into one place, and then an overall assessment of the business case is made. Now, that is quite a significant process that the Department for Transport needs to follow. I'm mindful that we need to get up alongside the timescale for delivering the boats.
You're breaking up.
Sorry, can you hear me still? Is that clear?
Better.
Yeah, thank you. I apologise. I was saying, in order to make sure that we keep the time to a minimum that's required by the Department for Transport to review business cases, and normally this process takes many months within the department, the department said they were prepared to receive the business case in advance of the council formally approving it and start work on reviewing those 5 cases. So their teams could look at that and get well on with their reviews whilst the council completes the process of actually formally approving it for submission to the Department for Transport. It doesn't bind you to making a decision today that to approve it. You are still within your rights to say, no, you're not prepared to support the business case. But we wanted to get as far on with the Department for Transport reviewing it as we could with whilst we waited for full council meeting today. So it's really just a practical step that we've taken. I hope you understand that. It's not intended to fetter the council's decision making on the business case today.
Thank you. And just one other query. In your response to questions from the steamship group, it was mentioned that if the funding for the new vessels in the SPV, if that is the option that's chosen, is in excess of the money, the levelling up money, the SPV would probably have to borrow on that. Now, my understanding after reading all the stuff about the Scottish...
Anita, if I may be careful,
okay.
We're in part 1.
Okay.
Anything that refers to the actual detailed business case needs to be in part 3 debate.
Okay,
It is covered by a confidentiality agreement. So if I may urge you to keep your questions high level for now.
High level.
Go into the detail in part 3, and then you can come back to clarify your position later.
I might struggle with the high level, so I'll just sort of step out now, right? Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Marcus.
I'll try with the high level. So basically, I just wanted to get on record for the public what actually is considered in a business case for this kind of project and what is being considered for other, say, transport links for a business case, because I'm not sure that the public understands what is in the business case and what sort of things are considered, like effects of prices on demand, how it fits with government strategy, stuff like that. So, Nigel, if you could briefly just sort of let the public know what things are considered in the business case, that'd be great.
Thank you, Nigel.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Marcus, for your question. The business case is a standard format that is being prepared by government, and it is used to provide a consistent assessment of infrastructure projects across the country. So there are set guidance which comes from both the Department for Transport and the Treasury as to how you go around about preparing a business case. You have to follow that guidance, and it is intended to allow assessment to be made of different infrastructure projects across the country, but to be done in a consistent way, and therefore, once the assessment's undertaken, advice would then be given to ministers for them to make final decisions on whether or not a scheme should receive investment. And it's intended to bring about transparent decision making in how the government arrives at its spending priorities. Now, the business case itself, as I said earlier, is made up of 5 cases, each of which has its own role, and it's the cumulative assessment of those 5 cases that allows officials at the Department for Transport and Treasury to form a view on a project and advise ministers. So I'm taking you through just briefly the 5 cases. The first case is the strategic case. What is the need for intervention? And so the business case that we've been working on looks at the existing circumstances that prevail in terms of who uses the service, how important it is, and what the age of the vessels are and why they need replacing, how important they are to the economy of the Isles and such like. So it effectively presents all the information that we have in terms of the need for a significant investment at this point in time to address a specific purpose. The second is the economic case, and that looks at value for money and the wider economic, social and environmental outcomes that this intervention would achieve. So that is key really to saying, well, if the public sector were to invest here, what value would that be in terms of public money being used in that way? And there is a specific way in which you have to run that assessment, and it produces a financial measure of the value of that money known as a benefit-cost ratio, which allows comparisons to be made with investing in other projects elsewhere. So in the case of City Sea Links, it will demonstrate what's the value of every pound that, if it were to be invested here, would the UK government get back in terms of financial benefits, social benefits, environmental benefits. The financial case looks at the affordability of what it is you're proposing to do, and so it takes you into the level of detail of how much is it going to cost, how much money you've got available, and it allows the government to make an assessment of your ability effectively to deliver what you say you're going to deliver, and what confidence they have that it's not going to cost more than you say it is. The commercial case looks at the viability of what it is you're proposing. So who's going to run it, and is it indeed going to be viable when it's introduced into service, to make sure that you don't actually invest in something and then find there's not a sound business plan in place. And the final case is the management case, which looks at how you're going to go about delivering whatever it is you're intending to do. So what measures have you got in place? What team have you got in place? What processes will they use to deliver it? Again, to provide government with assurance that if the money were awarded, that there's an appropriate team and processes and the experience of that team to actually deliver the project that you're setting out to. Again, to give them confidence that effectively, if you invest what is in this case a substantial amount of money, nearly £50 million, that the government are assured that it will result in the intended outcome, new vessels to operate sea link services which can be maintained into the future. I hope that's a helpful summary. Councillor Marcus, happy to come back on any further points that you may have on this.
That's great, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Nigel, for that. Councillor Legg?
So there's no sign-off by the 151 officer for this paper, and it says that there are no financial implications arising from the report, but it does speak about the way that the project development is funded. Just for the public, could we have some narrative on that?
Russell, our 151 officer, would you like to come in on that, please?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Chair. I don't think members should read anything in the fact I signed it. The report was processed very, very quickly. It was timing that the the Chief Executive and Nigel wanted the report to go out quickly. I was unavailable for the day or so that it was there, so the reason I haven't signed it is nothing to say that I'm not comfortable with the numbers in the report in any shape or form. We know that we have the grant from government, the report, and we know how much we have spent to date of the 1.6 million that government have given us in advance to work up the business case. As always in this, it's very clearly set out the financial position of the council and the reason that we're going down this route due to the huge financial risk if the council took on the project in its own right. But other than that, I'm comfortable with the report.
Thank you very much, Russell.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Legg. Right, members and members of the public, at this stage, we are going into part 3 in this council meeting. There will be the exclusion of the public to be voted on now by members, that under section 100A(4) of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the meeting for the following item of business on the grounds that it involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of part 1 of schedule 12A of that act as amended, being information about the business affairs of particular persons. Could I have a proposer and a seconder for that, please? Councillor Grottick and Councillor Peacock. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you.